My wife cheated on me with my family's accountant, and they stole my trust fund while I mourned my parents. But the mistress's wife teamed up with me, and now they're both going to prison for fraud. I'm 34 years old, work in finance, ironically, after everything that happened. And I need to tell this story because what my ex-wife and the guy who managed my trust fund did to me basically destroyed me in a way I'm still processing. The thing is, I always thought I was lucky, you know. I was born into a family with money, but my parents raised me to be responsible, to work hard, to not be one of those spoiled rich kids you see in movies. And for a long time, I thought I had found someone who loved me for who I was, not for what I had. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I met Natalie in college, I was like 20 years old, in my third year studying economics, and she was in my advanced accounting class. She was beautiful. Like, not in an obvious way, but in that way that makes you look at her twice. And what I liked most was that she seemed completely indifferent to the fact that I drove up in a BMW my parents had given me for my birthday. Most girls at that university, as soon as they found out my family had money, completely changed their attitude toward me, but not Natalie. She treated me like any other guy, made fun of me when I said something stupid in class, made me pay my share when we went out to eat. I loved that about her. I mean, it made me feel normal, like I was just Ethan and not Ethan the guy with the millionaire trust fund. We started officially dating about 6 months after we met, and it was perfect, honestly. She came from a middle-class family. Nothing fancy, but they weren't badly off financially either, and she always told me that all she cared about was that I was ambitious and hard-working. My parents adored her, especially my mom, who had always warned me about women who only wanted my money. Mom would tell me, "That girl is different, Ethan. I can see it in her eyes. She truly loves you." And I believed her, because I saw it too. Or at least that's what I thought. We got married when I was 27, after we both graduated and established our careers. It was a beautiful wedding. Nothing overly ostentatious because Natalie insisted she didn't want her friends to feel uncomfortable, which I thought was super considerate of her. My parents, who were like 65 and 63 at the time respectively, were so happy to see me settle down that they decided to add Natalie as a beneficiary to the family trust fund. I told them it wasn't necessary, that she had her own job and her own income, but my dad told me, "Ethan, she's your wife now. She's part of the family, and if something happens to us, we want to make sure you're both taken care of." The trust fund was managed by Andrew, a guy who had been my family's accountant for years, since before I was born, practically. My parents trusted him completely, and I never had reason to question it. The first years of marriage were good. Like, really good. We both worked a lot, traveled when we could, talked about having kids eventually. Natalie got along well with my parents. We visited them every 2 weeks for dinner, and everything seemed to be in its place. But then, when we'd been married for 7 years, my mom died of a sudden heart attack. It was devastating. I mean, she was 70 and perfectly healthy until that moment. My dad was destroyed, literally couldn't function without her, and 6 months later he passed away too. The doctors said it was his heart too, but I know it was from sadness, like broken heart syndrome or whatever that thing is called that happens when someone loses their life partner. Losing both my parents in less than a year was the hardest thing I'd experienced in my life, up to that point. Natalie was there for me, or at least, that's what I thought. She hugged me when I cried, made me food when I didn't feel like leaving bed, handled calls from relatives when I couldn't deal with talking to anyone. She told me everything was going to be okay, that we'd get through it together, that she would never leave me alone. And I believed her. Because why wouldn't I? She was my wife, my partner, the person I had chosen to spend the rest of my life with. But it turns out that while I was grieving my parents, Natalie and Andrew were busy stealing from me. I didn't find out immediately, of course, because who obsessively checks their trust fund when you've just lost both your parents? I trusted Andrew completely, just like my parents had trusted him for decades. It was like 4 months after my dad's death when Natalie came home one day and dropped the bomb. I was in the living room watching TV, trying to distract myself, and she walked in with a suitcase in her hand. I asked her, "Are you going somewhere?" And she looked at me with that face. You know, that face you make when you're about to tell someone something horrible and you know you're going to destroy them, but you're going to do it anyway. She told me, Ethan, I'm leaving. I'm in love with someone else, and I can't keep pretending this works. And I just sat there, processing what I'd just heard, thinking maybe I'd heard wrong, or that I was having a nightmare. I asked her, What? What are you talking about? And she explained, very calmly, as if she was discussing the weather, that she'd been having an affair with Andrew. Yes, the Andrew who managed my trust fund, the Andrew who was like 20 years older than me, the Andrew who was married and had a young daughter. She told me they'd fallen in love, that he was going to leave his wife, and that she no longer wanted to be with me. I couldn't breathe. Literally felt like someone had kicked me hard in the stomach. I asked her, How long? And she told me, 2 years. 2 years. She'd been sleeping with my family's accountant, the guy who had complete access to my finances, for 2 damn years, and I hadn't had a clue. I asked her if she'd ever really loved me, and she just shrugged and told me, maybe, at first. But I realized what I really wanted was financial security, and Andrew can give me that. Then she left. Leaving me sitting there in shock, trying to understand what the hell had just happened. The next few days were a blur. Honestly. I didn't eat, didn't sleep well. Just walked around the house like a zombie trying to process that my wife had left me for my family's accountant. I called some friends, called my uncle, my dad's younger brother, who sold insurance and was the only close family I had left. But nobody knew what to say. What do you say in a situation like that? Everyone told me I'm so sorry, but that didn't help at all. A week after Natalie left, someone knocked on my door. It was like 9 at night. I was in sweatpants eating cereal straight from the box because I hadn't had the energy to cook, and when I opened the door, there was a woman standing there. She looked professional, like business suit, perfectly arranged hair, but her eyes were red like she'd been crying. She said to me, Are you Ethan? And I told her yes, completely confused. She said, I'm Monica, Andrews, my wife. I need to talk to you. And that's when my life went from being a nightmare to being something completely surreal. Monica came into my house, sat on my couch, and told me everything. She explained that Andrew had confessed the affair with Natalie to her, that he was going to file for divorce, and that Monica, being a lawyer and basically a genius, as I discovered later, had started investigating. And what she found was much worse than just an affair. Andrew and Natalie had been diverting money from my trust fund for almost 2 years, since shortly after my mom died. They had forged documents, created fake accounts, and stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even up to $1 million, according to Monica's preliminary estimates. She showed me documents, bank transfers, emails between Andrew and Natalie discussing how to move the money without anyone noticing. There were text messages where they laughed at me, where Natalie told Andrew that I was so naive I'd never suspect anything, that I was so destroyed by my parents' death that I wasn't even checking the accounts. Reading them was like getting stabbed in the chest over and over again. This woman I loved, who I had shared my life with, my bed, my most vulnerable moments, had been planning to rob me from the beginning. Monica told me, Look, I know you barely know me, and this is a lot to process, but we need to work together. They betrayed us both, and I'm not going to let them get away with it. And that's how Monica and I became a team, which is ironic considering our spouses were together. She was incredibly smart and organized, and I had access to all the trust fund information. We spent the next few weeks gathering evidence, talking to lawyers, preparing lawsuits. Monica was furious, like a controlled and calculated fury that was a little scary but also impressive. She told me, Ethan, we're going to destroy them legally, we're going to recover every cent they stole, and we're going to make sure they face real consequences. And I completely agreed, because the rage I felt toward Natalie and Andrew was something I'd never experienced before. Like 2 weeks after Monica showed up at my door, Natalie called me. I almost didn't answer, but something made me do it. Her voice sounded sweet, almost pleading, completely different from how she'd sounded when she told me she was leaving. She said, Ethan, I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. I love you. I've always loved you, and I don't know what happened to me. Andrew manipulated me, made me think things that weren't true. Please, can we talk? Can we try to fix this? And I, being the idiot I was, felt something. Like a small part of me that wanted to believe that maybe it had been real, that maybe we could get past this. But then I remembered the text messages, the emails, the stolen money, and that small part evaporated. I told her, Natalie, I know what you did. I know about the money. I know everything. And there was a long silence, on the other end of the line before she said, I don't know what you're talking about. She tried to play innocent, told me that Andrew had handled everything, that she didn't know anything about any money. But I already had the evidence, already knew the truth. I told her, see you in court, and hung up. It was liberating, honestly, like I could finally start letting go of all that toxic hope that maybe things could go back to how they were before. Monica then did something brilliant. I mean, something that impresses me to this day. She told Natalie she wanted to talk to her, woman to woman, to understand what had happened. Natalie, being as arrogant as always, agreed to meet her at a cafe. Monica recorded the entire conversation, which was legal in our state, thank God, and in that recording, Natalie basically confessed everything. She told Monica that yes, she had helped Andrew move the money, that it had been her idea to add certain accounts that they thought no one would notice, because I was too busy mourning my parents to pay attention. Monica asked her if she felt bad, and Natalie literally laughed and said, About Ethan? He'll be fine. He has enough money anyway. When Monica showed me that recording, something broke inside me definitively. Any remnant of love or nostalgia I might have had for Natalie died in that moment. This wasn't the woman I thought she was. This was a cruel and calculating stranger who had used me for years. Monica also did another great thing with that recording. She sent it to the company where Natalie worked. Turns out having an employee who confesses to helping commit financial fraud isn't good for corporate image, so they fired her immediately. Natalie called me screaming, saying that Monica and I had ruined her life, that we were pathetic avengers. I told her, you started this when you decided to marry me just to rob me. This is just karma. Things got more intense after that. Andrew was arrested first, like officers showed up at his office and took him away in handcuffs in front of all his clients and colleagues. Natalie used almost all her savings to post his bail, which Monica and I found hilarious considering she'd soon have nothing. Andrew showed up drunk at Monica's house one night, like 2 weeks after his arrest, banging on the door and yelling that she had betrayed him, that she was a vindictive bitch, that he was going to make her regret it. I was there that night because Monica and I had been reviewing legal documents, and when we heard the shouting, we went out immediately. Andrew looked terrible, like he hadn't bathed in days, with red eyes and wrinkled clothes. His daughter Ella, who was like 3 or 4 years old at the time, ran out when she heard her dad's voice. She hadn't seen him since everything exploded, and when she saw him in that state, she got really scared and started crying. Andrew tried to approach her, but he was so drunk he stumbled, and Ella became hysterical. Monica grabbed her daughter and took her inside, while I stayed outside with Andrew, trying to calm him down. Although, honestly, I wanted to punch him. I told him, leave Andrew, leave now or we call the police and you violate your bail. He looked at me with so much hatred but eventually left stumbling. That night I stayed at Monica's house because Ella was inconsolable, kept asking why her dad was like that, why he had scared her. Monica was trying to stay strong, but I could see she was on the verge of collapsing too. I made her tea, helped put Ella to bed, read her a story until she fell asleep. And that became kind of a routine. I started staying some nights to help with Ella when Monica had to work late or when the girl had nightmares. It wasn't anything romantic, not at all. We were just two people who had been betrayed in the worst possible way supporting each other. The first court hearing was like 3 months after everything exploded. We had mountains of evidence, literally boxes and boxes of documents, recordings, testimonies from financial experts. Natalie and Andrew's lawyer tried to argue that everything had been a misunderstanding, that the transfers were legitimate, that there was no criminal intent. But it was so obvious they were lying that even the judge seemed annoyed with them. Natalie sat there in a conservative dress, trying to look innocent and vulnerable, but I knew her. I could see that underneath that facade she was furious. The case is still in process, but we've basically already won. Our lawyers say there's no way Natalie and Andrew avoid serious consequences. They're going to have to return all the money they stole, plus interest and penalties. They're going to lose their professional licenses, and they'll probably go to prison for a while. Neither of them can get decent work now because their names are tarnished. They're in debt up to their necks in legal fees, and basically their lives are ruined. Part of me feels satisfaction seeing that, like a deep and vindictive satisfaction that probably should make me feel guilty, but it doesn't. Natalie tried to contact me one last time, like a month ago. She sent me a long letter, like 5 pages handwritten, where she told me she was sorry, that she had been selfish and cruel, that she understood, if I could never forgive her. But she needed me to know that her feelings at the beginning had been real, that not everything had been a lie. I read the letter once and then threw it in the trash, because honestly, I don't care anymore if something was real or not. What she did, how she betrayed me when I was at my most vulnerable, that's the only thing that matters now. Monica and I are still friends. Good friends, I'd say. She's raising Ella alone, and I help when I can. The girl calls me Uncle Ethan now, which melts my heart every time. The other day, we were watching a movie, and Ella asked me if I was ever going to have my own family. I told her I didn't know, that maybe someday. She thought for a moment, and then told me, "It's okay, Uncle Ethan, you can be part of our family in the meantime." And that simple statement from a 4-year-old made me feel more loved and valued than anything Natalie ever told me in 7 years of marriage. I guess I'm still processing all of this. I mean, it's not something you get over overnight. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and think about all the moments I shared with Natalie, wondering which ones were real and which ones were calculated. I wonder if she ever really loved me, even a little bit, or if it was all part of an elaborate plan from the day she met me. I'll probably never know, and maybe that's the hardest part, not having that certainty. But I'm better now than I was 6 months ago, definitely. I went back to work, picked up the gym again, started therapy, which he should have done years ago, honestly. The money they stole will be returned eventually, although the legal process is slow and tedious. And I have people in my life who really care about me, like Monica and Ella, my uncle, some close friends who were there when everything fell apart. So I guess in the end, despite all the pain and betrayal and absolute shit that Natalie and Andrew put me through, I'm going to be okay. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually.